And thank you again to our sponsors. You are making this already amazing day possible. We are so excited for our next mini session, SGF, A Place for You and Me. As we continue to learn as a community how to become more inclusive and diverse, we wanted to have some of our fellow YP share some of their stories about why they're doing what they're doing to ensure that all young professionals have a seat at the table and know how to be part of the solution to create a more inclusive Springfield. To moderate this discussion, we have our fellow Leadership Council member, Daniel Oganyemi, with Burrell Behavioral Health. So please join me in welcoming Daniel to the stage, and I'll hand it over to him.
Good afternoon. What the? So typically when people say good afternoon, you say it back. So let's try again. Good afternoon. That's more better. Can we stand up real quick? We've been sitting for a while. It's freezing in here. Let's kind of shake it off. All right, so if you can hear me clap once, if you can hear me clap twice, you can clap once. Hear me clap twice. Can you stretch a little bit? Stretch. You guys awake? Don't fall asleep on our session. I'll be mad. Thank you all so much for being here. In case you haven't noticed, I've tried to start buying my pants longer, but I really want you to see my socks, so I can't wait to sit down. Anyway, thanks, Jessica, and thank you all for being here. I want to bring out our guests. Brittany Ballou, Krista Moss, and KJ Relke will join me on stage. Give them a round of applause. How are you all?
Good.
Good? All right, well, I just want to get started by asking you who you are, what you do professionally, and go.
Okay, my name is Brittany Ballou. I'm a Springfield native. I was born and raised here. I'm the co-owner at Culture Flock and also the creative director. Culture Flock, in case some of you don't know, it's a gift shop located in the Galloway district. We design and produce our own apparel and accessories, as well as we carry about 50 plus brands aside from our own. And in a normal year, we hold community workshops and events.
Hi, I'm Krista Moss. I moved to Springfield with my husband, Maurice, and our now 3-year-old son 3 years ago. So at the time, he was just 4 months old. I'm an attorney. I work at the United States Attorney's Office here in Springfield, Missouri. I do civil defense litigation, so I have the honor and privilege of representing the United States and any kind of civil actions that come against them in this district.
Hello, everyone. My name is KJ Relke. I am the Worship and Creative Director for Schweitzer United Methodist Church here in town, which means that I do all of the Sunday stuff for our modern services and a lot of the online stuff as well. I've lived here for 5.5 years. I'm originally from Dallas, Texas, and originally from Daegu, South Korea.
Yeah, thank you all. And we'll start with you for this next question, KJ. What is your favorite thing to do here in Springfield?
Can you ask that again? Sorry.
Yes, I said, what is your favorite thing to do in Springfield?
My favorite thing to do in Springfield is eat food.
Cashew chicken?
No, no, sorry. I've really loved all of the Korean flavors that I've been able to experience. That's really popped up in the past couple years. And I really enjoy the microbrewery, so eat and drink. That's what I like to do.
Okay, Krista?
Okay, so this is a really hard question. We really enjoy all the outdoor activities, the access to the outdoors. We love to hike, we love to run. There are beautiful trails here, and you can go within driving distance of anywhere to see mountains and lakes and water. But I have to add that I love the professional networks that are here. We've only been here for 3 years, but we have made some really incredible friends and a really amazing professional community, and that is very unlike any place that we have ever lived. So I really think that is one of my favorite things about Springfield.
I think Probably my most favorite thing about Springfield is the creative community that we've found. Just through Culture Flock, it's allowed us to meet so many different artists and so many different people in the community doing really creative things.
Yeah, and I appreciate the point that all of you made up, but I want to hone in on what Krista said, talking about kind of the network of friends and community that are around here. I think that's helped probably a lot of us be here on this stage and start getting acclimated. But I want to talk a little bit about diversity and inclusion, as that's obviously been a big push for Springfield, Missouri, and especially in 2020. So I'll start with you, Krista. How is your story making Springfield a more diverse and inclusive place?
Yeah, that's a really difficult question. I feel like I thought about this question for a long time because we've obviously not been here very long. And so I really think that, when my husband and I moved here, we got involved very quickly, and we had a lot of opportunity to just share our experience and our story from all the different places that we have lived before moving to Springfield. But really, I think when our story started to actually matter is, I'm sure some of you guys have heard either my husband or I share this in another forum, on another panel, but when we first moved here, we'd been here about 2 months. My son at the time was about 5 months old. My parents were visiting Springfield with us for the very first time, and we were visiting Cider Days on Walnut Street. And as we were leaving the festival in the middle of downtown, we were walking down the street, and a group of young white males rolled down the window at us and said the N-word. And it was just very shocking for being in a new city. Haven't been there very long. We knew that the diversity demographics were very low, but we'd had such a great welcoming experience prior to that. And so I think at that point, I really recognized that the community that I had moved to was going to be a very different place than anywhere that I had lived before. And I took that as a motivating factor to really get involved, to not be afraid to share my story, to not be afraid to be involved in different community initiatives, to be very bold in sharing my perspective with other people. And so I think that part of our story is not only the experiences that we've had here since moving to Springfield, but realizing that for my son, a young black boy, to experience at 5 months old someone calling him a slur on the side of the street by a group of kids that don't even know anything about the family that he belongs to, that I did not want that to be a community that he grew up in. And so if I wanted to see that change, I knew I had to be involved, and I knew I had to share my story. And so for us, I think our story has brought inclusivity and diversity, more awareness, just because I'm not afraid to talk about what I think is important if I want to see change happen.
Yeah, same question, KJ.
Yeah, so I was pretty terrified when I saw that this question was going to be asked to me, because my living here has been pretty unique. I didn't start thinking of myself as Asian American until 6 months ago, or maybe 8 months ago. So it's been a weird time for me, and just kind of going back through my own memory. But I think really my first entrance into diversity and inclusion in Springfield has been as a member of the disabled community, because that is one of the identities that I hold first in my heart. And so just even like little things about like whether or not a place has hands-free paper towel dispensers or things like that are really, really simple ways. And anytime I see that, I'm really so deeply appreciative of that. And so anytime I'm not, I'm like, oh, this is a real bummer. But I think for me, being, I guess, going through the process of self-racializing, if you will, because I'm adopted transnationally, so raised by white parents. Hi, Mom. Has been interesting because I've learned, I think, I've gone through just a unique process of being like, okay, so here's the white perspective of living in America, which I hold dear to me, and now realize that this being the first time that I'm away from my parents, people infer things about my parents through me, whatever. So anyway, so it's just been interesting, and so I think I have just gone on that process of, oh, now I finally know enough about who I am to start to answer that question. So nothing is my answer, but I'm getting there is my fuller answer.
Thanks, KJ. Brittany?
I run Culture Flock with my business partner, Summer Trottier, and we are an LGBTQ women-owned business. Two of the things that matter the most to us is visibility and inclusiveness. It's incredibly personal to us. We want Culture Flock to be a place where everyone belongs no matter what your gender, no matter your sexual orientation or your race. We work very hard to be vocal about that. A lot of the brands that we carry, we focus those on being mostly minority-owned brands and women-owned brands. About 80% of the things we carry in our store fall in that category. When I was growing up as a gay kid in Springfield, I really believed that in order to be successful and to be authentically myself, that I would need to live somewhere else, somewhere like a bigger city with more diversity. Never in my wildest dreams would I have ever imagined that I would get to be myself, who I am now, and be doing what I'm doing in Springfield. So if I grew up feeling like that, I feel like there's got to be other kids that feel the same way. It would likely have changed my perspective and probably given me a greater idea of what's possible if a place like Culture Flock would have existed whenever I was growing up. But our hope is that through Culture Flock that we can provide not only like a safe place for people, but a place to inspire and give that confidence back to them. We want people to know and feel that they belong, and not only that they belong, but that their dreams can come true here, that they don't have to leave to make those come true.
Yeah, thank you all. One thing that I like talking to people about is when you have people that you consider diverse, right, in your organization, in your friend group, not expecting them to be the professionals, right? They're not in diversity and inclusion. They're not to stop expecting them to always want to share their story, always want to talk about the hot button issues. And so with that preface, I want to ask our panelists, what is your why? What motivates you to continue going, to continue telling your story, to continue doing the things that matter to you? And we can start here with you, Brittany.
I think what I just spoke about wanting to be that example for other kids that are out there today, and to show that Springfield is an inclusive place and can be a diverse place, that we've had a lot of really great support from the community, and that's been super encouraging. So just to continue that I think that's the most important thing to us.
KJ?
My why, I think for me, is representation. So I've had the unique privilege of being a content creator for a church. And I was just talking with someone who I met who is local here, and I realized that none of my mentors and none of my deeply, like whether it was spiritual or whatever, the people who gave me the worldview for my religion, none of them were Asian American, and so I didn't even realize that representation mattered to me until a few years ago. I was watching an episode of Kim's Convenience, and I was like, oh my gosh, look, I've seen this experience before. I've been through this before. And I used to get, emotional at like Lilo and Stitch, just generally family things as an adoptee. But here, the unique thing about living in Springfield, where there aren't as many people who look like me, is I suddenly realized how deeply important representation is and why that is such a fight. And so for me, just being able to tell more diverse stories and more diverse backgrounds and understand nuances, even within what we generally think of as diversity and inclusion or whatever, that is something that is really motivating to me, is to tell people stories, especially people who are in the Midwest or just find themselves in communities where there aren't as many people who look like them.
Krista?
Yeah, I think Brittany and KJ have really hit the nail on the head. I don't know that there's much more I can add, but really the same for me is representation. Growing up, I didn't have any teachers that looked like me. I didn't see professionals in the community that looked like me. Honestly, it wasn't even till about a couple years ago that I even saw super powerful, ambitious, successful Black female attorneys. And so for me, living in Springfield and having the opportunity to share my story is so important because I want my children and I want their friends to really be able to see that you can be successful. And no matter what you look like, you can see someone, what they're doing, and be inspired to do it because they look like you. You know, you can always be inspired by people who are doing amazing things, but there's something special and significant about looking at someone that looks like you and identifying yourself as that person and then having this motivation and drive to do it. So for me, it's just being able to be someone that I know I wish I had seen growing up.
Yeah, representation definitely matters. So from you all's perspectives, what are two things that this Springfield 417 land does really well when it relates to diversity and inclusion? And then what are two things, practically speaking, that maybe we should look at not doing anymore? Start, Krista.
Oh gosh, putting me in the hot seat and the hard question. Okay, two things that I think that Springfield does really well that I've noticed since I moved here. There's a very passion in this community to see change happen. And I see a lot of organizations being very intentional about what they're doing to promote change. I see a lot of community initiatives. I see just a lot of conversations. And so I think that is really good and that needs to keep happening. I think another thing that we do really well, or that we should keep doing, is recruiting our college students. We have a ton of transient people that are in and out because of their experience with the multiple educational facilities that we have here. And I see a lot of effort, especially at MSU and by President Cliff Smart, the things that he's doing to keep not only his staff culturally diverse, but also to invite students of a diverse background to come here, to stay here. I think those two things are very important that we do, and we need to keep doing them. Two things that we should stop doing. I don't know if this is going to be a popular answer, but I think that we have to recognize that the past is the past, and we can't change the past. So we need to stop being apologetic about the past and start working on using what we have learned from the past to shape our future. We can't change what people did 10, 15, 20, 200 years ago, but we can learn from the mistakes they made, the atrocities that they committed, and be motivated and ambitious to do better, to stand on the shoulders of those who have worked really, really hard to change this community. I don't know if you guys have had the opportunity to watch The Millie Project. If you haven't, it is a phenomenal production by local Springfield artists, and it really gives you an insight into what our community used to be like, where there were thriving minority communities, and now we live in a community where it's a wonder where those generational building blocks went to. And it's because of things like discrimination and racism and prejudice and bias. But even though someone like myself could look at that and be very discouraged, instead, I sit here, having been here for 3 years, looking at the things that I see this community doing, and knowing that we have to keep working to just keep pushing forward and quit just sulking in our shame and our guilt and apologizing for it, but then not doing anything to make our community better. So I'm going to stop there, but that's one thing we've got to stop doing.
Okay. Brittany, KJ, whichever you want to go.
Crystal, that was an excellent answer. I would say two things that we need to continue doing are continuing to include women and minorities in important conversations. It does seem like there is, especially in the last couple of years, been a big effort. I mean, even like events like this, sitting here talking about diversity and inclusion, it's super important and we need to keep doing that. Second, I would say listening to one another, which I feel like that's one of the most important things we can do, especially when we have differences or someone else's experience is different than ours. I think to continue to listen to one another is very important. Things that maybe we need to stop doing, stop being afraid of people that are different than us. I think that kind of speaks for itself. And then stop being afraid of things like diversity training. I think those are really important. I think getting people with differences, teaching them how to work together is only going to make our community stronger.
I don't know that I have two things for each thing, and just kind of on an individual personal experience point, 5 Pound Apparel recently put out a call for models just on their Instagram, and my wife and I were like, ooh, let's do it. And I got accepted, which there is no way in the world. I'm not symmetrical enough to be like a good model. And that's more than just my hands, it's like everything about me. So, but I loved that I got to be a part of that, and that was such a way that I felt honored, I felt seen, I felt included, I felt loved by this brand that is hyper local, and I loved that. So do more of that and keep doing that. That's great. One thing that maybe we could stop doing or refrain from doing is, I know that there is a lot of pressure, or at least for me, it feels like there's a lot of pressure for brands, for companies, for individuals. Anytime there's a thing, you're like, well, I want to be one of the good ones. I want to be one of the right ones. I just want to make sure that people know that I'm okay. I'm doing my best. I'm trying to push the needle forward in whatever cause, social issue you want to do. Personally, I don't really care if you post about that. I would much rather see small, incremental, meaningful change over an extended period of time, like churches. If you have a prayer session for racial equality, that's great. I would love to be part of the 4th one. I don't necessarily want to be a part of the 1st one, but being a part of the 10th one, or the 15th talk, like that, to see that things continue and that you don't make a big deal about it, but quietly and earnestly, without looking for praise and appeal, continue to do good things. I don't care that you're loud about it. Just be honest, be ever pushing forward, like Krista said.
Yeah. And we're going to wrap up with this last, it's a part 1, number B type of question. First of all, practically speaking, how can young professionals be a part of making Springfield welcoming and a place where people feel like they belong? And then the second part is, how can the young professionals of Springfield be leaders in this effort? And we won't necessarily go one by one, just whoever wants to answer.
All right, I'll go first.
I don't know why everybody looked at me. That was terrifying.
Okay, what the first part was, I got the second part on leadership. What was the first part?
How can the people in this room and the people listening be a part of making this a place that's welcoming and a belonging place?
Yeah, I think it's really important that we continue to treat each other with respect and kindness. We live in a culture that is very, we have a hard time accepting other people's opinions, even if they are illegitimate. And I'm not saying that you need to accept someone's illegitimate, unsupported opinion, but what I am saying, if you are someone that demands that your perspective and your opinion and your point of view be welcome and that other people view it with an open mind, then you have to understand that you treating someone the way that you expect to be treated will be the key and the door to having even the remotest, slightest opportunity for them to be receptive to your message. I think that it's really important that anyone in this room that wants to be involved in seeing change learn how to use their discretion and their integrity to communicate with the world around them. Because we aren't going to bridge divides by yelling at people and telling them they've got to believe what we believe. You know, there are some people that are beyond understanding and help. They're going to always think of things in a way that's not acceptable. There's nothing that I can do with that person, but I can do something with someone who maybe would be open-minded if I would just take the time to treat them with grace and kindness and respect and understanding. So I think for me that's a big thing that I focus on. Like if I'm having a conversation with someone and I really want them to understand why issues of diversity and inclusion are important, I have to first understand where they're coming from so that they in turn would want to respect and listen to me and understand where I'm coming from. As far as leadership, I think that people who want to be leaders or who can be leaders, that just jump in and get involved in anything. I mean, start with mentoring. You know, our young generation, they are the future of this community. And as an attorney and a mother and someone who's involved in many community activities, I still prioritize finding some time, somewhere, somehow in my busy schedule to mentor a young person, because I know that that is how I was given opportunities. It's how I learned to think beyond my limited understanding as a young person. And so that mentoring, I think, is a really, really important facet to helping our community grow and evolve.
Anyone else?
That was a perfect answer. I think the only thing that I would add to it is getting out of your comfort zone, continuing to do that, getting up and talking and telling your story even when it's difficult, reaching out to people that you have differences with, or maybe your beliefs don't totally line up. I think it's really important for us to be having those discussions.
Yeah, I think for me, when you're thinking about diversity and inclusion, which I know can usually feels like it's just race, and it's so much more than that. But if you're trying to think about like, oh, we want to be more diverse and more inclusive, maybe just pick one minority, like one aspect of that, and go hard after that. And trust that other people will pick other aspects of that diversity pie, basically. So like for me, I just recently started a podcast, and our target audience is Korean adoptees, because I had not heard an adoptee story that wasn't about white people until I started figuring out that I was a Korean adoptee, basically. And so, like for me, like there are probably other things, like all adoptees are welcome to listen, all non-adoptees are welcome to listen, but I care really deeply about Korean adoptees, and making them feel seen is gonna go so much further. Like we talked about earlier, like you can relate to people, but when that particular, unique, special identity checkbox is checked, you're like, oh, I really deeply resonate with that. So if that's my target audience and somebody else's target audience is going to be like, well, I'm going to go after, queer people in Springfield or whatever that is, and making them feel welcome, then we can talk about that, and we have a seat at each other's tables. But it's also okay that we have separate tables. And in fact, the more tables, the better.
Yeah. What you all may not know is this was my audition to moderate the 2024 presidential debate. So please let me know how I did. Anyway, thank you all for being a part of this. Give our panelists a round of applause. As we welcome Jessica back to the stage. Thank you.
What a great presentation. Let's thank Daniel and our speakers one more time. Although we're not taking official breaks today, I do want to take a moment to thank our afternoon break sponsor, One Communications, and our charging station sponsor, Leadership Springfield. We do have some individually packaged snacks and drinks in the lobby, so please enjoy some refreshments or take a break in the charging station. Thank you, One Communications and Leadership Springfield. Let's give them a round of applause. And as we transition to our final mini session, I'd like to have you direct your attention to the screen for one last sponsor video.